portioning out water and food. Sonny, just like everybody else, received a few sips of icy water and a small piece of rock-hard moldy bread. Despite its unappetizing look, he forced himself to eat the whole thing, just to be left as hungry as he was before. By the looks of it, he wasn't the only one. The shifty slave that had been walking behind him looked around in anguish.
By all the gods, they used to feed me better even in the dungeons.
He spat on the ground, desperate.
And most of us innocent men in the dungeon were there waiting to visit the gallows, too.
A few steps away from them, where the paved road ended and sharp rocks began, a scattering of bright red berries were growing from the snow. Sonny had noticed them before, clustering here and there along the road, and even noted how pretty those resilient things looked, contrasted against the white. The shifty slave's eyes glistened as he tried to crawl toward the berries on all fours.
I would advise against eating those, friend.
It was the gentle-voiced slave again. Sonny turned around and finally saw him in the flesh. He was a tall man in his 40s, lean and scraggly, handsome, with a dignified look of a scholar. How a man such as him ended up a slave was a mystery, yet there he was. The shifty slave scowled.
You always have something to say, don't you? Why should I listen to you?
The scholar smiled apologetically.
Those berries are called bloodbane. They grow in the places where human blood was spilled. That's why there's always a lot of them along the slave trade routes.
The shifty slave rolled his eyes.
So what?
The older man sighed.
Bloodbane is poisonous. A few berries might be enough to kill an adult man.
The shifty slave flinched back and glared at the scholar.
Curses!
The slave's dispute was lost on Sonny, who had an uneasy feeling in his stomach. As he looked around the camp, he recognized the markings on the mountain walls. This is where he had seen the visions of slaughtered corpses when he first started the nightmare. His stomach turned. As he closed his eyes, he could still see the mounds of cracked and shattered bones peeking out through the snow. He felt a chill run through his bones. This was where they were going to die. Sonny spun around in a panic, anxious to see if he could see some sort of nightmare creature waiting to devour them all. His chains rattled and pulled taut. He realized even if he saw the monster coming, he would be powerless to fight or flee. He was a sitting duck. As if on cue, there was a thunderous roar from above them in the mountains. The soldiers and other slaves stirred, realizing for the first time they were in grave danger. But it was too late. A massive dark form came crashing from the sky. Sonny yanked at his chains, trying to weasel away, but the being was falling at them way too fast. Panic descended over the encampment as the slaves reacted to the thunderous noise. As they turned to face it, they watched waves of boulders and heavy shards of ice raining down upon them. Fight or flight responses kicked in, and they lurched away, only to find they were anchored in place by their chains. Screams of terror rose as slaves entangled by the thick chains crashed into each other and fell to the ground. Shadows happily danced on black stones, and Sonny was one of the few slaves to remain upright. Unlike the rest of the poor slaves, he'd been able to prepare. Calm and collected, he gazed at the night sky, his attribute-enhanced eyes piercing the darkness, and took one measured step back. In the next second, a piece of ice the size of a man's torso hit the ground right in front of him and exploded, showering everything around with sharp shards. Others weren't that quick. As ice and stones continued to rain, many were wounded, and a few even lost their lives. Agonizing wails filled the air. The veteran soldier, the one who had whipped Sonny only a few hours before, stood amid the chaos.
On your feet, fools! Get to the wall!
He angrily tried to get the slaves to move toward the relative safety of the mountain slope. However, before anyone could heed his command, something massive came crashing down, sending a tremor through the stones beneath their feet. It fell right between the caravan and the mountain wall, plunging everything into silence for a few seconds. At first, it looked like a lump of dirty snow, roughly round and as tall as a mounted horseman. However, once the creature unfurled its long limbs and rose, it towered over the stone platform like a nightmarish omen of death. Sonny's eyes went wide.
That thing must be at least 4 meters tall.
The creature had 2 stumpy legs, an emaciated, hunched torso, and disproportionately long, multi-jointed hands, 2 of them having bone claws, and another 2, these shorter, ending with almost human-like fingers. The thing that at first glance looked like dirty snow turned out to be its fur, yellowish gray and ragged, thick enough to stop arrows and swords. On its head, 5 milky white eyes regarded the slaves with insect-like indifference. Beneath them, a terrible maw crowded with razor-sharp teeth was half open, as though in anticipation. Viscous drool was running down the creature's chin and dripping into the snow. What unnerved Sonny the most, though, were the strange shapes endlessly moving, worm-like, under the creature's skin. He could see them clearly because, unfortunately, he was one of those unlucky souls closest to the monstrosity, getting a nauseating first-row view.
What the hell is that?
He thought, stupefied. As soon as Sonny finished that thought, all hell broke loose. The creature moved, slashing its claws in his general direction. But Sonny was one step ahead. Without wasting a single moment, he jumped sideways, as far as the chain allowed, conveniently placing the broad-shouldered slave between himself and the monster. His quick reaction saved his life, as those sharp claws, each as long as a sword, sliced through the broad-shouldered man a fraction of a second later, and sent streams of blood flying through the air. Drenched in the hot liquid, Sonny hit the ground, and his fellow slave, now simply a corpse, fell on him from above. Pinned to the ground, Sonny struggled to get up.
Damn! Why are you so heavy?
Temporarily blinded, Sonny heard a chilling howl and felt an enormous shadow passing over him. Immediately after, a deafening chorus of screams filled the night. Not paying it any attention, he tried to roll the corpse to the side, but was stopped by a forceful lurch of the chain that twisted his wrists and filled his mind with white-hot pain. Disoriented, he felt himself being dragged a few steps, but then the chain suddenly slackened, and he was able to control his hands again.